Okay, it is now 2:02 Central Time. Welcome, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. The purpose of this webinar is to provide a high-level overview of our recent publication of a request for applications for a new program called the Bioproduct Pilot Program, offered through USDA's National Institute of Food and Agriculture, NIFA. Next slide, please. So this meeting is being recorded. Please be sure to mute your microphones. Right now it all sounds good, so thank you. Technical support is noted on this slide. Throughout the presentation, you may type questions into the chat box, but as a heads up, I am going to be covering several frequently asked questions towards the end of the presentation, so some of those questions may be answered. So you may want to hold on to those questions, or you can type them in now. The slides and the recording of this webinar will be posted on the website shown on this slide in the coming days. Next slide. Thanks. USDA is an equal opportunity provider, employer, and lender. Additional details are included on this slide, as well as a link to USDA's non-discrimination statement, 508 compliance, and filing discrimination complaints. We encourage audience members to reference this slide if they have any questions or concerns. I will leave it up here for a few moments for people to digest. All right, next slide. Thank you. So welcome, everyone. My name is Toby Ahrens. I'm a national program leader within NIFA's Institute for Bioenergy, Climate, and Environment. Let's see, I'm in the Division of Bioenergy and Bioproducts. Dr. Finkenstad, who you hear from in a second, and I will be co-leading this program with very close support from Dr. Nahar. Vicki, over to you for an introduction.
Thank you, Toby. My name is Vicki Finkenstad. As Toby said, I'm a national program leader here at NIFA. My research specialty is in utilization of biomass and bioproducts. I spent over 20 years in research with our sister agency, the Agricultural Research Service, before joining NIFA. And I look forward to reading your applications. Dr. Nahar.
Hi, I'm Nurun Nahar, a program specialist in the Institute for Bioenergy, Climate, and Environment. I'm happy to work with Toby and Vicki in this Bioproducts Pilot Program. Thank you.
Great, next slide. All right, so here is our agenda for the afternoon. We're going to give a quick overview of NIFA. We're going to talk through the BPP program, the request for application details, evaluation process, and additional resources that may be helpful. We'll then end with several frequently asked questions that I've been receiving from many of you, I presume, and then we'll take questions from the audience. So we're going to start at the end of our presentation. We're going to start with questions that have been posted in the chat. We'll then move to raised hands. Please note that there is a Q&A function that we will not be using. So at the bottom of the screen, the question and answer, let's try to stay away from that. Please either use the chat function or raise your hands. Okay, next slide. NIFA overview, next slide. So NIFA is the extramural funding arm of USDA, meaning that we give out grants to support research, education, and extension to ensure the long-term viability of agriculture in the United States. Next slide. Our purview is very broad. So everything from animal health to food science to bioenergy, everything in between and beside it. So many other disciplines that you can see here. Next slide. And this is why we're all here today, Bioproduct Pilot Program. The link that is up here is the important one that you'll want to reference for, in the future, getting to frequently asked questions for any other information related to this opportunity. Next slide. So this is a new program, and the purpose is to advance the development of cost-competitive bioproducts with environmental benefits compared to products on the market today. Applicants must address all of the priorities that are listed here. So the 4 priorities are bioproduct development and production scale-up, cost savings relative to other commonly used materials, 3 greenhouse gas emission reductions and other environmental and climate benefits relative to products that are on the market. And 4, landfill quantity and waste management cost reductions, including life cycle and longevity extending or longevity reducing characteristics relative to other commonly used materials. Next slide. In addition, applicants are highly encouraged to include the following. 5, a techno-economic analysis, including baseline data that helps prioritize project activities. 6, analysis of environmental benefits, such as greenhouse gas emissions, waste management benefits, other relevant benefits, and including baseline data that, again, will help prioritize project activities. 7, analyses should compare the bio-based product of interest to products that are on the market, including product specifications, as specific as you can get. 8, a justification of the industrial relevance of the chosen scale for scale-up activities. 9, a discussion of the market impact and expected path to market for bioproducts that will be advanced by a potential award. And 10, inclusion of industry partners for critical commercialization steps, including discussion of how this funding will be leveraged with private sector resources. Okay, so eligibility. The lead applicant, we have been getting some questions about that, but the lead applicant must operate a bioproduct research facility that meets all 4 of these criteria. If you don't meet any 4 of these criteria, then your application will not be reviewed. It must be funded in part by a state. It must be located within a reasonable distance, not to exceed 3 miles of the primary residence hall of an institution of higher education. It must provide students opportunities to engage with research activities and provides opportunities for an institution of higher education to collaborate with private enterprise. Okay, and now, Nurin, I'm going to hand things over to you to discuss application and submission.
Oh, thank you, Toby. So there are a couple of information regarding application and submission, even though it's outlined very detailed in the RFA. Just as a reminder, applicants must propose the research projects only for the Bioproducts Pilot Program. Also, only the standard grants are applicable for this BPP. So that's just kind of a reminder. Other thing I wanted to mention that the Bioproduct Pilot Program has no matching requirement. So NIFA will not factor any matching resources into the review process as an evaluation criteria. Now, application details, I encourage everyone to go to the RFA, especially the details information available a little bit at page 1 and 7. Toby already mentioned the online, you can just access the RFA to the USDA.gov grants and funding opportunities for the Bioproduct Pilot Program. Please make sure to note that application deadline is 5 p.m. Eastern Time. That's Wednesday, August 31st, 2022. Now, there is a reason why we said 5.00, because application received after the deadline by a minimum of 1 minute or more will be declined. As an example, if an application received at 5:01, that is considered late and would be rejected. So please take your time and try to submit the application weeks or at least days earlier. So make sure that no internet connection or other errors happen and it gets submitted before the 5:00 p.m. Now, couple of information in terms of anticipated funding for fiscal year 2023. Our BPP funding is up to $10 million, and award range is between $2 million to $5 million, and then anticipated number of awards from 2 to 5, and grant duration is going to be for 2 years to 3 years. Now, once you are ready to submit the application details, I will encourage you to please go through the RFA page number 12 that has detailed information in terms of formatting and then the page limitation and numbers and everything. Application formatting overall, all the pages should have 1-inch margins and use 1.5 line spacing. Every application should have a project summary or abstract. That's a 1-page summary. It does not count toward the page limit of the narrative. However, please keep in mind that project narrative page limit is 25 pages. So that's 25 pages will be strictly followed on our admin review. There would be up to 4 additional pages for figures and tables only. But everything should be Times New Roman, no smaller size than 11 fonts. Only figures and table could have single spaced in between. The other information is the statement of eligibility. The statement of eligibility should not be exceeding in 1 page and must be included as Appendix 1. Do not add any additional appendices to circumvent the page limit. And also, application exceeding the page limitation will be returned without review. So please be mindful that all those would be strictly followed. Other information I would like you to kind of follow on page 12 is the project narrative. There are guidelines, clear guidelines on RFA. What are the narrative must include? The narrative must include introduction, rationale and significance, objective, approach, project timeline, cooperation and institutional involvement. And a new one, please be mindful on this one, alignment with the Justice for the Initiative. All applicants have to include a description of the historically underserved communities that are projected to benefit from the proposed work. So this is a new one, you must kind of remind to do that one. And additionally, data management plan, logic model, and summary of the previous work. So please make sure that you check the RFA page 12 for all the must include narrative in the project narrative. Now, for the application submission process, NIFA only accepts electronic submission. So everything has to be submitted to grants.gov, and there is no other way you can submit the application. You can also use the NIFA grants application guide. There is a link, and this is the updated latest version that's updated in May 2022. So this application guide is available for you to use as a resource. And this application guide is part of the corresponding application package for the request of application. And it has a lot of valuable resources for application preparation and also for the submission. However, please keep in mind that if there is any discrepancies between the RFA and application guide, in that case, always RFA instruction supersede the application instruction from this guide. So always follow the RFA guidance that will supersede this guidance too. Another key note that all the applicant documents must be in the portable document format or the PDF format to be accepted by NIFA, including the project narrative and also budget justification. Grants.gov may allow other formats like Microsoft Word or Microsoft Excel, but NIFA does not allow those formats. NIFA only accepts the PDF format. So please make sure to install the Adobe Acrobat or Adobe Reader to submit your PDF format application. Do not use any third-party PDF builders and do not use any password-protected PDF. If you have any questions or concern once you are getting ready to submit the application, please do not hesitate to reach out to us for more clarification. I'm going to Vicky for the proposal evaluation process.
Yeah, before I start that, I would just like to let everybody know that grants.gov is its own separate system. Do not wait until the last day to submit your proposal. We are not responsible for grants.gov. So if there is any technical difficulties associated with grants.gov, we can't help with that. It has to be grants.gov. So do please try to get your applications, the week before, not I think it's a Wednesday afternoon. Don't wait for that. So just keep in mind that grants.gov can be a little bit squirrely. So we'll make sure we add that to our FAQ, a reminder about that. The evaluation process for the proposals. NIFA evaluates each application in a two-part process. First, we screen each application to ensure that it meets the administrative requirements set forth in the RFA. Second, a scientific peer review process is used to technically evaluate the applications. What this means for that is once we assemble we have a external panel manager assigned to this program. They, in conjunction with the NPLs and the program specialist, select a review panel of experts in their own right. We check for conflicts of interest. And then each proposal is assigned at least 3 reviewers in the expertise of the proposed topic. The reviewers produce individual reviews of each proposal, evaluating the strengths and the weaknesses of the proposal. These written reviews are used to begin the panel discussion. So then we assemble a virtual panel in which the panel then discusses the reviews with other reviewers. And then finally, we end up ranking the proposals. This discussion with the peer reviewers is a consensus based. So everybody on the panel has to reach consensus about the ranking, the final ranking for recommendation for funding to NIFA. Next slide, please. The actual proposal evaluation criteria are listed in the RFA. So please check the RFA for the individual criteria. This is the timeline of the BPP, just to let you know that we are in the, today is the RFA informational webinar. It's been a fun process through the years, or I'm sorry, through the months. And then our proposals are due August 31st, 2022 at, as Narun said, 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. We expect that the review process will take approximately 6 to 8 weeks, and we expect to have award notification sometime in December of this year. We'll try to keep you as applicants updated as much as possible, and we appreciate your patience as we conduct our peer review process. Next slide, please. Okay, other resources. I did see a question about whether or not these slides would be available after the webinar, and the answer is yes, the slides will be available, including a recording of this webinar and the Q&A period. And also the FAQs that we developed from this session will also go online at the BPP website. This slide is the other resources that you can have in terms of what you might need for your application, including, I would like to point out, the indirect costs associated with the proposal. So there are some NIFA and infrastructure related restrictions. And of course, grants.gov has a lot of information about how their system works and the pieces you'll need for that. Next slide, please. All right, so this is the phase of questions. Once again, these are the contact information. And I'm going to start reading through the chat and offering these questions to Toby to answer. Once we're done with that, if you do have a question, go ahead and please raise your hand, and we will try to get you live to ask your question. Keep in mind that you only get 1 minute to ask your question, so you might want to compose it if you're going to do it verbally. All right, are you ready, Toby?
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
Before we do that, there are a few, so we've been getting a lot of interest in this RFA so far, which has been great, but we are starting to see some themes. So I'm going to go through some frequently asked questions that the 3 of us have been getting, because I suspect many of the questions in the chat box that you may have might be related to these. So won't take me long. I'll try to cruise through a few of these quickly, and then we'll open it up to chat box. First of all, what is a bioproducts research facility? So the intent is a physical facility, not a virtual facility, which we have been getting questions about, that has the ability to meet the stated criteria. So those 4 I already went through, and you're going to use Appendix 1 to explain how your bioproducts research facility meets those 4 requirements. There have also been questions about, well, what if we have several facilities that are involved? The intent is that this would be the primary facility where the research and scale up is happening. So if you have, two, you don't want to raise flags, that your secondary one that doesn't meet those criteria is where the bulk of the research is going on. For the 3 miles to the primary residence hall, that's 3 miles as the crow flies. That's so a straight line as opposed to a driving distance. And then another question that we've been getting is about sort of the scale of that facility. That's maybe separate from does it meet those 4 criteria, but you're in the project narrative, you're going to have to explain things like how your bioproducts research facility meets your justification for the industrial relevance of the chosen scale for scale-up activities. So that will be incumbent on you to justify why it's appropriately scaled. Okay, so that's some notes on the research facility. We have been getting a lot of questions about feedstocks. Does my feedstock X count? So the RFA does include a broad range of feedstocks, including any agricultural commodity, food, feed, fiber, livestock, oil, or derivative thereof that the Secretary determines to have been used in the production of materials that have demonstrated market viability and benefits. Separately, and for purposes of clarity, waste streams such as forest and crop residues, ag and food byproducts or wastes do count as well. So both commodity products as well as waste streams. Separately, we've also been getting questions about sort of novel feedstocks. The intent here is commodity feedstocks. And so we're interpreting that as at the time of submission, there should be commercial quantities of your feedstock available at the intended full commercial scale for a facility. Let's see. Okay, duplicate and multiple submissions. We've been getting a lot of questions about can an individual PD be a co-PD on another proposal, submit multiple proposals, or multiple proposals from a single institution. I'm going to give a 2-part answer. So first of all, duplicate proposal submission, the exact same proposal, you can't put it in multiple times in hopes that we review it with separate people and one of them has a positive response. So no duplicate submissions. But if multiple proposals from an institution that are different, great, they're accepted. Also, a single PD can be primary PD on 2 different proposals that are not don't have substantial overlap, and they can be co-PDs on other proposals as well. The other point I'd like to make right now, when I look at, there's close to 200 participants in this webinar. We've been getting a lot of interest, and so I would very strongly encourage people that are considering being on multiple proposals to put your energy and effort into the ones that you think are most competitive. We're awarding between 2 and 5 awards for this, so it will be a competitive call. Okay, with that, let's go ahead and start going through the chat box, and then after we get through the chat box, we'll open it up to raised hands.
Okay, Toby. The first question is the advancement of a circular economy a secondary priority but not listed?
So it certainly is not a secondary priority, but the way we have reduced it to practice for the purpose of this application is in those 10 items that are outlined in purpose and priority. So certainly within that, there are, when you talk about a circular economy, landfill quantity and waste management cost reductions is sort of a core piece of that. Other sustainability benefits, greenhouse gas emission reductions, other sustainability, environmental climate benefits are part of that. So it absolutely is not secondary, but the way that it should be articulated or reduced to practice is in justification for those purposes and priorities that are outlined there. And Vicki, for any of these answers, feel free to chime in with any additional color you'd like.
Yep. Sure thing. All right. Next question is, do we need to include TEA and LCA baseline data as part of the proposal?
So in the purpose and priorities that I talked through before, 4 are musts in those musts, you have to be able to articulate how your product has cost savings relative to other commonly used materials. So there has to be some justification for that. Separately, in the highly encouraged, it's a techno-economic analysis. So there has to be something there. Was it just around TEA or is that LCA as well? So for both of those, the highly encouraged is a detailed techno-economic analysis or life cycle analysis. The must is the comparison has to be there. And that's even, I did see another one in the chat box, even if this is a new product, is that the case? Yes, you have to be able to justify why you think there will be cost savings relative to something on the market.
Right. All right. If a project is in the early stages, i.e. pre-proof of concept, must a techno-economic analysis be fully completed, or must the application indicate that that will be a future step?
So let's see.
Early stages.
If it's in the early stages, so first of all, it's going to be the same answer as before. So the intent for this is bioproduct development and production scale up, and you're going to have known cost savings relative to what's out there. So there are other programs that could be really suitable for folks that are on this call. So if if you're a small business and this is your first introduction to NIFA, we have the Small Business Innovative Research Program that I believe the RFA is active now. Almost always the application deadline is in early October. And I would highly encourage folks to take a look at that if they're not familiar with it. So it's for early stage businesses that are looking to advance some technical hurdle that is critical to something in agriculture. It's a very broad call. So reach out to if you look at the RFA, there are different topic areas. There's certainly one for bioproducts, 8.8. 8.1 covers forest resources, so that could be a suitable RFA as well.
Once again, could you define a bioproducts research facility?
I think we have covered that. So there's 4 criteria that are defined. If there's additional detail on that somebody wants to put in the chat box that we can get to later for something that hasn't been covered, happy to cover it.
Right. All right, for sites with 2 locations, for example, at a landfill or in a biotech lab, do both sites need to meet the criteria?
Right, so I think I addressed this one where the primary location where the research and scale up is happening will be the one that you'll want to provide the justification for. So you don't want to raise flags to reviewers that it looks like the bulk of the research is happening at a location that does not qualify for those 4 qualifications.
This is the fun one, Toby. Can you give examples of a bioproduct?
So that is a fun one, and luckily we've defined that in the RFA. So this RFA defines it as one of 2 things, either a construction product or a consumer product. And so those definitions are given in the RFA. We're not going to go into more detail on those in this webinar. So stay tuned. If you have a specific bioproduct, does it fit the definition of a consumer product? Stay tuned to the FAQ page and our webpage for additional detail there.
Right. And as a general definition, a bioproduct is usually considered some product that is derived from renewable resources, such as agricultural commodities, forestry residue, food waste, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the general definition of bioproduct. Can the award be less than 2 million?
It cannot. So the minimum is 2 million, the maximum is 5 million.
It says will all questions answered today or not show up in the FAQ listing? The answer is yes, they'll be available.
Let's put a qualifier on that. I think so the frequently asked questions we'll certainly post. If there are specific ones that are posted here, we'll absolutely get those questions back to whoever answered it. We may not post them on the website. So if you see the FAQ list come out and your question is not there, feel free to reach out to us. We are different than some other agencies where when the RFA is posted, sometimes you're not allowed to ask questions of the program director, the program leader. With us, please reach out if you don't see it on the list there.
Are references included in the 25-page limit for the narrative?
I can answer that. No, reference are not included in the 25 pages. 25 pages strictly for the project narrative, and references you can have additional pages and submit that.
All right. Assuming all other eligibility requirements are met, are private companies with bioproduction research activities eligible for this program?
Absolutely. We would love to have private companies as lead applicants, have research facilities, provided that that they meet the other requirements, which was part of your question. So absolutely, yes. So it's many different institutions are eligible to apply. So it's institutions of higher education, universities, colleges, private companies, small businesses, non-for-profits. It's very broad in terms of institution type.
Let's see, the max project funding per year, it is, and how many years for a project? We're asking for a 2 to 3 year project, 2 to 5 million. So if say you request 5 million and it is awarded, then you would, I believe, yeah, Toby, that's a good one. That might be a Dr. Kephart question about how the funds are distributed per year or all at once.
Yeah, I think typically for these awards, it's a 24 to 36 month performance period. There might be some lumpiness across years. So if you get 5 million in 2 years, I don't believe it's going to split it down the middle for the 2 years. So there can be lumpiness, I believe, but feel free to correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that's correct.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you, Dr. Kephart. Let's see, can an ARS scientist, the ARS is the Agricultural Research Service of the USDA, can an ARS scientist be the PI?
Yeah, and this is good for others to hear too. So the Agricultural Research Service, a portion of USDA, they are eligible to apply for USDA funding, including this call. So absolutely.
Yeah, as long as they meet the other eligibility criteria. As a principal, right? As the principal applicant.
As a principal, they're certainly welcome to participate as co-PDs.
Yep. What is the definition of pilot scale? Is there any expectation in terms of throughput, like so many tons per day, et cetera?
Yeah, so there is not explicitly stated. This is the one where I mentioned before, and it is mentioned in the purpose and priorities that a justification of the industrial relevance of the chosen scale for scale-up activities should be included. So this answer very likely will be different depending on your conversion technology. There are some where you want your conversion technology to be larger to demonstrate industrially relevant performance. There are others that can be quite small. So it is incumbent on you to provide that justification in your application.
All right, in the project narrative, a recommended component is the logic model. Can you give an example of that?
We could likely post one, and we can make sure that in the resources that are provided, there is a link to one. Is that an appropriate answer?
That's correct. I believe the National Agricultural Library has information and resources about logic models for research projects. So we will include that in our FAQ. What happens if there is a similar proposal under review by another agency?
Yeah, so this is a good one, and even by our agency. So some in the current and pending, which you're required to submit in the current and pending section for other applications, you'll want to list that. And then there will be a review. You cannot be funded for the same work from 2 different federal agencies or from 2 different USDA programs. So in the current and pending, you'll want to say we've submitted, or you can just list what the project name was, the agency it was submitted to. There are other details it asks for. And then at the time of funding, you would have to decide if there's significant duplication, which award you would want to take. But you certainly can submit to 2 different agencies as long as they're listed in that current and pending. So that would be a pending proposal.
One of the priorities is bioproduct development and production scale-up. Are there any specifications on scale-up, pre-pilot, pilot, et cetera? If there are multiple products, do we need to plan a scale-up of all the products?
So we answered this for a previous question. So it's, again, up to you to justify the chosen scale for scale-up activities. We would not be interested in funding if there are multiple products. If there are ones that don't fit the other priorities in the RFA, those would not be suitable for allocation of effort from the RFA. So you may have multiple products, but you'll want to provide appropriate justification for how both of those products fit the priorities of the RFA.
And inclusion of co-products, right? So you might have a main product, but then you might have co-products that are necessary for sustainability, right, of the whatever bioproduct you're working on. So co-products could be included as part of like the TEA and the life cycle analysis, but you really need to concentrate on one bioproduct. Would there be another call for this program in 2023? The answer to that is no. We are awarding FY22 and 23 money in December. So this is a one-time program authorized by the infrastructure bill. And so we're not anticipating a new RFA or a new call for proposals in 2023. Whatever the budget looks like for 2024, we'll let you know as soon as we know. Next question, what are the covered agricultural commodities?
Yeah, so I think we covered this. I think we covered it already in my frequently asked questions. So the RFA talks about the broad range of feedstocks. And then the only additional interpretation on our side is the quantity of those feedstocks for a full commercial facility should be available at the time of submission.
Can you please provide some examples of equipment items that would and would not be allowable per the RFA?
Fixed equipment is not allowable. If it's not fixed, it would be allowable.
Oh, I love you. We have the smartest and most beautiful people on this webinar. I'm telling you. In the RFP title, does the word pilot refer to this being a new program or imply that the project be pilot scale?
Pilot scale is the intent of it, but I do love the pun that may or may not have been intended in the title. So, and we actually have had some programs somewhat related in the past that have had extraordinary interest like this one is having. So we would love to find a way to fund something like this in the future on an ongoing basis. But as Vicki mentioned, it's not part of the plan right now.
If a small business is partnering with a state university that will be testing on a local farm, where does the 3-mile requirement come into play?
It comes into play for the bioproducts research facility that is not described in this comment, unfortunately. So the bioproducts research facility is the one that has to meet those requirements. And that's where the bulk of the research and scale up will be happening.
Yes, and the 3-mile requirement is the legislative language.
Yeah, but certainly, as we mentioned before, small business or university are eligible to apply. You would want the lead applicant to be the one that's operating the bioproducts research facility.
What's an example of a successful project?
We're looking to you guys. We don't know yet.
That's all right. We don't know what a successful project looks like. We can, one of the things we're going to post as well in the BPP is we are going to post a list of the I was just going to say the complementary programs that NIFA has. For example, Toby has a bioeconomy program that's an integrated program. And I have a biorefining and biomanufacturing program that would also be of interest to the people in BPP. And so we will post those, and those will have examples of funded projects. So you might be able to get an idea of the parts for the big BPP one. Are biofuels qualified?
Biofuels are specifically not a primary focus for this, or as a primary focus as a product is not appropriate. So if there are co-product streams that you're interested in developing, that would, those co-products, not the non-biofuel portion, but biofuel is a primary focus, no.
And may hemp be used as a feedstock?
If hemp is available in commercial quantities at the time of application for a commercial facility, then yes. If not, no.
Yep. All right, here we go. This is a very specific one. Let's see, we might have to answer this offline, Toby, but I'll read it out here. We have bioproducts research facility, a pilot scale facility under construction, which will be operational starting in 2023. However, it will not be ready by the time the proposal is due. Is this a potential challenge?
So again, I would go back to the level of interest that we have seen in this program, that I expect it to be a highly competitive program, and those that can meet the goals and the purpose and priority within the stated performance period, 24 to 36 months, are going to be the strongest applicants. So if you think and you can provide appropriate justification for the facility being able to meet the purpose and priorities within that performance period, then it wouldn't specifically be excluded, assuming that you met those other 4 criteria that are listed for a bioproducts research facility. And I think, Vicki, I'm trying to follow along. I think you may have jumped a little bit, which is fine. Let's see. I am on the 3 miles from university housing. Do you see that one?
I haven't gotten there yet.
I think it may be up. So 3:24 p.m. is what I'm looking at. Maybe we can use this opportunity to switch. Do you want to, we'll switch hats?
Okay.
All right, here we go.
All right.
I'll take this one and then we'll go after that. So 3 miles from a university housing will kill many projects. Zoning rules will prevent a pile of waste that close. So two quick responses to this commentary, not a question. First of all, it's a bioproducts research facility. It's not intended to be the future commercial location of something like this. And so agreed that potentially, one wouldn't want a future manufacturing facility within 3 miles of a university for whatever, for a number of different reasons. That's not the intent of this call. So hopefully that addresses your pile of waste. Secondarily, the 3 miles was written into law for this program that then we're overseeing. So it is a restriction on the applications that we're going to be able to receive. We're still receiving enormous interest, but it is one that came with the program that came over to us, and we understand your frustration with it.
Yep.
Okay. Industrial hemp we have addressed. Next question to Vicki. We have bioproducts research facility, pilot scale facility. Oh, under construction. Sorry, this was yours. So we're back.
Yep.
We're back on now. What are examples of other attachments that should be included in field 12?
Other attachments are shown in the RFA proposal guide. That is a supplement to the RFA and to the grants.gov process. Other attachments are usually something like letters of support, letters of commitment. Other things that go under there are the COIs and current and pending support. So there's a list of things that you are loaded up under other attachments. So you should look at the guide for that.
The RFA states duplicate or multiple submissions are not allowed. NIFA will disqualify. For those new to federal financial assistance, NIFA's grants overview provides highly recommended information. Okay. The university that submitted this, Auburn University, interpreted it as a single submission from each institute. So we've addressed that before. That's not the case. A single institution, Auburn and others, may submit multiple, and single PDs may be on, they may lead completely different proposals or be co-PDs on different proposals.
Right. In this case, the RFA and the legislative language that it was derived from is overriding anything else.
Okay, next question. Clarification on feedstock availability, please. Did you say the feedstock used must be available in sufficient quantities at the time of submission to the grant? Yes. We were going to work with new materials that we have in the development pipeline. Is this allowed? We have a pilot facility. This is part of our research facility to help scale our technologies.
The intent of this program is to demonstrate that we can produce the selected bioproduct. And so if you're doing a feedstock that isn't available in large quantities, commercial quantities, then you can't easily transfer this technology in the time frame associated with the project. In that case, we would suggest that you look at the Small Business Innovative Research, the SBIR program, which has early stage and late stage commercialization and scale up and commercialization. At the time of submission, because we can't predict the future, we don't know if that commodity, that crop, or whatever material will be available in 2 years. So that's why we say at the time of submission.
Great, thank you. If a university is a primary applicant, do they need to partner with an industry partner?
No. However, if you look at the RFA, it's highly encouraged that a private business be allowed to participate. You need to have the opportunity for both student learning and working opportunities, as well as the opportunity for a private industry to participate as well. So is it necessary? No.
Yeah, and it is explicitly noted in one of those highly encouraged industry partners for critical commercialization steps, but not a absolute requirement. Okay. Regarding the additional 4 pages of figure, then the total pages would be 29 pages, including figures?
That's correct. 25 pages of narrative and up to 4 pages of figures and tables.
They will be submitted separately.
Yes, I believe that the application process has them submitted separately. Yep. But we will check on that. Let's check on that, Toby, and make sure that it's not just 4 pages tacked onto the narrative.
Okay, great.
Yeah, we'll check on that.
Dr. Nahar, any clarification on that, or we'll post it afterwards?
We can post it afterward because it's
Okay.
25 pages, the narrative, and then up to 4 additional pages. And once we are talking about a lot of techno-economic analysis, life cycle analysis, people sometimes need to put some of the raw data or different tables. So that's what meant for additional 4 pages, but we can clarify on our frequently asked questions.
Great. Okay, saffron can be a bioproduct to research for cancer cure. All right.
I love saffron. I actually grow saffron in my kitchen garden. Saffron as a bioproduct, yeah, as a research for cancer cure, those are one of those excluded ones in terms of cosmetics, pharmaceuticals, etc. Right, Toby?
That we're not commenting on this webinar.
Yes.
That will be posted afterwards, correct?
Yeah. We're not actually sure whether that will meet the definition. Whether basically a chemical derived, right, from a plant or an animal into a bioproduct, we'll check on that for you.
Does a construction product, including a material that is used as a major component of a different product? Does a construction product include a material that is used as a major component of a different product?
Yes, a construction product is something like, a good example would be like composite deck boards, right? Things like that. So anything that can be used in construction. Yep.
Can funding be paid for product registration at EPA?
Yeah, the EPA is interesting. I am not actually sure if the RFA allows for intellectual property and, for example, product registration, Toby. That might be another question for Dr. Kephart.
For tech transfer and IP, usually they're specifically excluded. I'm not sure on the product registration side.
I think it's important to point out that this is a competitive research program and not a program that advances beyond research the product into registration, intellectual property protection, patent filings, those types of things. So restricted to the research activities.
Great, thank you. If there are multiple products from the process, do we need industry partners for every product?
No. No, you can focus on one bioproduct, multiple bioproducts out of your feedstock. And you really only need, but make sure that you're not diluting your proposal too much. So.
Can the feedstock be globally available feedstock, but maybe not mainly produced in the US, or does it have to be US-based feedstock?
There is an executive order listed in the RFA about Made in America, and those things are going to be enforced. Those conditions are going to be enforced. So it's a Made in America, which we interpret as the feedstock has to be available in the United States or its territories.
Are renewable fuels derived from covered agricultural commodities, which advance the purpose and priorities of this RFA, considered a bioproduct for the requirements of this program? So we have, go ahead.
Yeah, biofuels, renewable fuels are excluded from this program. Renewable fuel or biofuel can be a co-product for part of the sustainability, but it is not the primary focus of this RFA.
You mentioned the lead PI, institute, or company must meet 4 criteria. Will other participants need to meet all 4 criteria?
No, only the primary institute. That is the institute of the project director and the one who will receive the funds must meet those eligibility requirements.
Okay. And a logic model planning process has been posted by Vicki, and we will make sure to put it on the FAQ page as well. Thank you. And others have posted as well. Can you be partially funded by different agencies?
Not for the specific proposal that you're submitting to us. So you can't be duplicate efforts between us and NSF. You can't have the same proposal. You can have different proposals that are tangentially related. That's fine. In our application, when you're talking about the PI and the co-PIs of the project, part of that, as Toby mentioned, has current funding and pending funding, which includes all your federal grants or other types of financial support. And so you need to list those grants on that sheet that goes in with the PIs and co-PIs. So the short answer is yes, you can be partially funded by a different agency, but it definitely cannot be overlapping because we don't allow double dipping.
If this is a new program, any suggestions from archived awards from existing programs that may be useful in putting together this application?
Yes, we will post that on our webpage after this webinar. We'll post the programs that in NIFA that are related to the BPP.
I think the question is around successful awards.
But yeah, so there,
yep.
there is not going to be an apples to apples successful award that we will be posting that, you know, will be, this is a new program that has a number of different priorities listed in it. So certainly for previous ones and other programs, take with a grain of salt. This is new with new priorities.
Right. But the general format,
Yes.
you can look up the current awards and the past awards on our site.
Okay, this question is coming from someone that is 3 miles from an institute of higher education. Collaborators, subawards are with a different institution. Can you confirm? This one we've addressed. Primary applicant with the bioproduct research facility must meet them. Co-PDs or collaborators don't have to. Zoom video will be available to those of you that have arrived late. It'll be posted in the coming days. Yes. Is this applicable to University in Puerto Rico?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Is a downstream agricultural product, say a byproduct of biodiesel production, considered a covered agricultural commodity? So the covered agricultural commodity was referencing the feedstock. So the way I'm reading this is, does a byproduct of biodiesel as a feedstock that would be, so that would be considered a suitable feedstock?
That's correct. It's a co-product.
Yeah.
But biodiesel would not be the primary focus of the project.
Pilot stage, more questions on this. Do you mean that a product that is currently moving into proof of concept stage would not be as competitive in this grant? So this is one where it depends on your definition of proof of concept, and different folks will have different interpretations of that meaning. So again, we're going to steer you to the language that is in the RFA.
Right.
So if it's in the proof of concept where you're not, I mean, the purpose is research and scale up. So if there is no scale up happening and you're at the very early stages of proof of concept, given the level of interest that we think we're going to see, I would think that you may not be as competitive as somebody that will be doing scale up and has industrial partners. Proof of concept often may mean it's harder to involve industrial partners and convince reviewers that there's going to be commercial adoption in the foreseeable future. Would the developed bioproducts be automotive parts?
Yes.
Is there a suggested performance start date for the project?
Yeah, the project start date can be any time in 2023. I believe that for the purposes of administration, that the start date has to be in the fiscal year 2023, which is before September 30th, 2023. Is that right? Yes. Yes. So sometime before September.
Can the industry partner be located in another state, which is more than 3 miles from it? We've addressed this before. Industry partner, no problem, as long as the research facility is within 3 miles. For budget periods years 2 and 3, what's an acceptable inflation factor for materials and for wages? We will leave this up to you to use industry standard terms, and you'll be able to find what those are.
Yes, and your Office of Sponsored Research or whoever is doing your budget for you should have that data. They know kind of what's the cost of living for your state, region, et cetera.
Liquid effluents of processing companies qualify for the fund. So I think this is as a feedstock. Liquid
yes. Yeah, waste products, right, that normally would be thrown away, burned, and or landfilled are appropriate for this.
Would a bioinsecticide converted from co-products of biofuel production qualify? So again, on this webinar, we're not talking specifically about the consumer products. We're still waiting for some interpretation on that language. So please look at our FAQ page in the coming days for clarification on this one. Does an animal feed product that is developed from food waste qualify?
Generally not. Yeah, generally not. Something that exists already in terms of like a food product, generally those are not, they wouldn't be competitive.
if we're the industry partner with commercial bioproducts and we want to reshore jobs here in the US, are there any partners within the 3 mile zone that want to collaborate? Circular Systems, see us here. Look, check out our website.
All right,
we have
good
access
job.
to feedstock technology market, not as the crow flies. See our website and you can donate at here. Okay.
Thank you so much for
yeah.
that. Yes,
All
so
right.
potential matchmaking going on in the
Yeah,
chat.
I love
Good
it.
job.
Circular Systems.
Yep.
Okay, how would new bioproducts be economically cheaper than existing petroleum-based products and production when we know the cost of comparison has such negative ecological effects? So it sounds like a leading question. Does the new product have to be cheaper than existing comparable? And the answer, the way it's, go ahead, Vicki.
Yep. Once again, we have short and long answers. The short answer is no, technically it doesn't have to be cheaper if it has other benefits associated with it. So for example, and once again, how do we know what the petroleum price is going to be in a year, right? With that volatility, right? So, but at some point we have to anchor it.
Yeah. So
anyway,
yeah,
go ahead.
Well, we do say cost competitive. And so
yeah.
For cost competitive, there are price or performance advantages. So if you have
yes.
performance advantages, that will factor into price. So if it's a higher price, but it performs differently, then that will have to be factored in. But if it is exactly the same product, same performance, then the cost competitive will need to be met.
Yes. Yep.
If
and
a qualified
also about the greenhouse gas reduction and environmental
yep.
benefit.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's a higher bar for these products than the petroleum alternative.
Sure.
Okay, if a qualified institution has to be funded in part by the state, how can a private company lead? So an example would be a private company gets a grant from the state to advance bioproduct development, and that happens on a fairly regular basis. And there are a number of different ways. So if they have state grants certainly would qualify for something like this. Yeah.
Yeah, there are things like state economic development grants and things like that that the states offer. So once again, check with your state.
I'd like to perform engineering in the Washington State, funded by Washington State, an office not located within 3 miles to a dorm, to generate primary bioproduct research facility in California at a location. So again, the lead applicant should be the operator of the bioproducts research facility that is within 3 miles. So in this example, the bioproduct research facility that you're collaborating with should probably be the lead applicant, and then you would collaborate with them on this project, if I'm reading that correctly. If the bioproduct relates to regenerative ag, soil health, does a carbon market carbon verifier need to onboard, or is a letter of support the appropriate route?
I'm not sure if on board, that you need a letter of commitment, but a letter of support that says if funded, they will participate would be a good thing. So a letter of commitment differs from a letter of support that says, a letter of commitment says, if you get funding, we will do X, Y, Z, right? As a subcontractor or whatever. A letter of support is, hey, this sounds really interesting, and if you get funded, talk to us, So in terms of carbon capture and carbon cycling and carbon credits, you can include that information. That actually might be interesting. Toby, you want to?
I'll leave it up to you. If it's a critical portion of commercializing your product and it's important to the value of the product, then absolutely, as much as you can show that they're part of the project team will benefit you. If it's tangential and a potential future benefit to the carbon intensity of the project, then maybe less critical. If our product qualifies for carbon credits and those credits make it less expensive, so can you use carbon credits to buy down the cost of your, you want to take that, Vicki?
Yeah, the answer is yes. But be careful when you talk about those credits, especially if they're coming from some type of federal regulation that has yet to be written, right? So keep in mind that you can include carbon credits, but put that caveat in there.
Can liquid sludge into clean irrigation water qualify?
Clean irrigation water is not allowed under this.
Yep, construction materials or consumer products, which we will clarify in the FAQ section, but that would not fit either of those. Okay, a biotech startup from Chile wants to contribute. The wine industry byproducts pomace and grapeseed to produce food additives with high nutritional value. There is some great research going on within ARS and historically has been in this area, which you would be a great collaborator for. As far as the actual product itself, again, we'll refer you to the FAQ page. It'll be posted soon. For international partners for something like this, we actively encourage those partnerships, but the lead applicant should be, anyway, sorry, Vicki, you want to chime in on this?
Oh, go right ahead. You got it.
Lead applicant should be based in the US, but this is a great plug for folks that want to.
That's cool.
Go ahead.
You can have an international partner, but you must include the justification for the benefit to the United States.
Yeah. Does any type of student housing qualify as a dorm?
Your university is responsible for designating its primary dormitory, right, student housing. So your university needs to designate which one that is, and that is included in your statement of eligibility.
Can the Research Institute be new and set up specifically for this grant? We've addressed this one before, that, performance period and things like that. You'll want to make sure that you can qualify. And so, yeah, probably leave it at that. Anything to add, Vicki? Okay, again, I'm asking eligibility question because I'm checking with our sponsored program office. Language RFA is confusing. To clarify, multiple submissions refers to the PD, not the institute. So we have answered this one several times. So institutions may submit multiple applications or an institution may submit multiple applications as long as they are different in substance. PDs also may submit multiple applications as long as the substance is different. If our company has been funded through a loan by our state, would that qualify us as a private company?
And partially is a loan considered funding by the state? We'll get back to you on that one.
Yeah. Must we be state funded? If so, can a nonprofit organization partner with a state funded institution to qualify? So again, the lead applicant has to be the one that operates the bioproducts research facility that is funded in part by the state. So it refers to the lead applicant. Can converting a dead tree into liquid glucose qualify? Again, on the product, we're not talking about the products yet. Dead trees, Vicki?
Yep. Certainly, forest residue and forest product waste, right? Landfill diversion, converting it into another bioproduct, great.
Yeah. Can the lead applicant be a tribal member owned business located on a reservation?
Yes, as long as it meets the eligibility requirements. Yep.
Any criteria on the scale up, running hours, product quantities?
No, we haven't designated anything about, what throughput we would, that a pilot scale would have. That is part of your application, and you need to justify the potential scale up, right, on those quantities that you think are important for your bioproduct.
I think we're getting more questions rather than fewer. What are we doing wrong here? No, that's all right. We'll stay here until we get these questions answered. Pardon me if it's been answered. Dorm, any university property. So we did just answer that. Totally fine if you don't hear it, repost it. But your university will designate a primary residence hall as the dorm. So check with the university. Okay, lead applicant not located 3 miles, funded by a state grant, setting up a research institution in another state. So the state would not be directly funding the bioproducts research facility. So I am funded by the state, but the facility would not. Is this okay? I am funded by a state grant. So if your time goes to operating the bioproducts research facility. So it's going to be up to you to show the trail of how state funding goes to towards support of that bioproducts research facility. So yeah, maybe we can talk offline on this specific one, because you also say you're going to be setting this. Let's see, no. Yeah, maybe we'll talk offline on this one.
Yeah, it's got a lot of moving parts in that question.
Yeah, but if state funding can be tied to the operations of the bioproducts research facility, then it would be okay. If that didn't clarify, we'll take it offline.
Right.
oh,
Toby, I've got a couple. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, is that it? I had a note saying there were lots more, but I think I've gotten to the bottom of it.
I've got one that over in the Q&A that says, is the grant opportunity only available to educational institutions? The answer is no. Anybody can apply as long as you meet that eligibility requirement. Folks from Chile, hey again. We answered this as well. The product qualifies for carbon credits, and those credits make it less expensive than a competing product. Does that count? Yep.
Great. And I had thought in my list here that we still had 40 plus, but it looks like we were going through the list. So please, it looks like there's still lots of attendees here. If there are other questions, go ahead and stick them in the chat. And we did also say that we'll move to raised hands. So if you want to either do it in the chat, or if you want to raise your hand and ask, we can unmute you and give the opportunity to ask live. So we just got another one. Would biobinder or asphalt for road pavement from waste qualify for bioproduct?
Yes.
Yeah, this one we can say. On the consumer products, we're referring to FAQ. On the construction, great.
Yep, construction product, yep.
So Toby, I'm gonna just say that one of our attendees raised her hand, so probably can go back to her and unmute her. Are we ready for answering raised hand?
Yes, Yanghui Zhang, we will allow you to talk. And you should be able to talk now. I think you may want to unmute if you're not, we can't hear you if you're muted.
Zhang, you are allowed to talk, just please unmute.
Excuse me, that the 29 page thing in the statement that there's a four, because in the proposal, we always insert some figures or tables in the main text. And that is important that the 4 additional figures, 4 pages of additional, we need to clarify. And then in the current wording would be not 29 page in total. So
we're going to clarify whether those extra 4 pages have to be loaded as a separate document. If you choose to go that route, the 4 pages have to be separate. So we're not going to go through with a ruler and measure the ones that are embedded in the document itself.
Okay.
So it would have to be your 25-page narrative. If you choose to embed figures and tables in there, that's part of that. If you choose to separate them for this additional 4 pages, we'll clarify whether that is appended at the end or whether it's a separate document to upload.
Understand. Thank you.
A few more coming in here.
I see. Oh, go ahead, Toby.
Would biopolymers, bioplastics be considered a building material?
Yes, they would.
I think it depends on how they're used. So if you're using bioplastics for bottles, then no. If you're using bioplastics as part of a building material, then yes. Right. So it depends on the application.
That's right. Yep. Packaging. Right. Yep.
Is there a forum for looking for potential research partners?
No, we don't provide that. However, if you're looking for potential research partners, if you look at the funded projects on the NIFA website, you'll find people who are working in the same field you are. And then you might be able to call them up and set up a partnership.
Yeah. If a team member or a non-member purchases the bioproducts generated, say a researcher who wants to do research on the product application, what becomes of that revenue stream? Goes to the applicant or PI, please?
That's beyond the scope of this. That is a business decision.
Yeah, and the intent of this, back to Dr. Kephardt's comments earlier, is it's for research, not for commercialization. So in this case, or if somebody buys a research product, that's beyond the scope of the RFA for us. Repeating a question that was not answered, criteria on scale up, running hours or product quantities. Usually these details are in DOE. So correct, they're often in DOE, they are not here, and we do not list running hours or product quantities. So it will be up to you. And again, we're going to refer you back to that industrially relevant. So for your chosen conversion technology, so this is a very broad call. So that answer can be very different depending on your choice of technology. So it should be appropriate for the industry, the conversion technology that you're choosing. Vicky, okay, question for you. You stated any equipment funded by grant must not be fixed, but not fixed. Does that mean portable equipment can be funded, and if so, must it be removed at the end of the grant period?
Yeah, fixed equipment, construction of facilities, refurbishing, et cetera, is not covered under this grant. Equipment like scientific instruments, et cetera, it's possible to be covered under this grant. You need to add your budget justification for the purchase or use or rental or whatever of that equipment that you need to complete the project.
Bioplastic packaging, a consumer product or a building material? So I think we mentioned that before. So packaging, depending on how it's being used, I don't know if you can use that as a construction material. If you use enough of it, wrap it a really lot. No, sorry. So packaging, I think in the context you're talking about would be a consumer product, and we'll refer you to the FAQs to be answered shortly. That likely would be covered, but it'll be in the FAQs. I understand that biofuels as a primary focus is not appropriate for the RFA. Is this part of the legislative language or a NIFA decision?
We should refer to Dr. Kephardt for that one.
So that's part of the legislative language in the authorization. The authorization specifies construction products or consumer products, and both of those have legislative definitions that we refer to in the RFA. And so under those, it clarifies that that biofuels are not considered either one of those, and so that's why they're not part of this particular program.
Thank you.
We have multiple construction and consumer products being created from our ag waste stream, each being done at different universities. Can we combine all of these in one mega application with one university as the lead, or should each university file their own application for different products?
Your choice, if you'd like. Remember that the grant award amounts are anywhere from $2 million to $5 million. And so whatever you think would be the best application you can put forward for the amount of work and the amount of funding you're asking for.
Our pilot is located in an OSU facility. Can we charge the location rent to the grant?
I believe that does come under the budget. The budget worksheets has something like facilities, rentals, et cetera. So yes, you can include that.
There is a question in the Q&A session. Would solid manure be qualified feedstock?
Yes, it's an agricultural waste from production, from animal production. Yep.
All right, I'm not seeing additional comments in the chat or hands raised, but we will absolutely keep it open in case you think of anything. definitely give it a few minutes. And absolutely, we thank everyone for participating. I'm not sure if we have formal closing comments, but there's been an enormous amount of interest. Please continue to reach out to us if there are additional questions. We'll have these FAQs posted shortly on the website.
Right. Yes, and you can certainly contact Toby and me. Send us, your one-page executive summary, and we'd be happy to, put our 2 cents worth in. We can't help you with the technical details or, but we can certainly give you our opinions on whether or not it would be appropriate under this program.
All right, a couple more trickling in here. Fertilizer and lubricant qualify as products. So we will refer you to the FAQ page coming soon for consumer products and the clarification there. Will you make recommendations to change the requested amount if you don't think it's appropriate, or would that just make you less competitive?
Generally, we don't make budget reductions. For example, if your applicant asks for $4 million over 3 years and we think it's only, we don't think that, right? We don't change it and say, no, we're only going to give you 3.5. But the amounts fluctuate depending on appropriations and things like that. So the short answer is no, we don't do that. The long answer is it might fluctuate depending on budget considerations.
Yeah, so the other part of the answer is your application will be judged on the budget justification in support of your project narrative that is meeting the priorities of the RFA. So if your budget is not appropriate for what you're suggesting, you'd get docked points by the review committee for that. We wouldn't come back and say, had it been different, just in the same way we would go back and say, had your project narrative had this different piece, then we'd, so you'll be graded, you'll be judged based on what's in the application. Separately, if the review committee identifies you as a very high priority for funding, there is a chance we'd go back to you and say, we've said that this is up to 10 million. If because of future appropriations, it's slightly less and we can't support all of what you requested, then there may be an opportunity to say, listen, we can't do everything. It's going to be slightly lower. Would that be okay? But that's maybe separate from the review itself.
Yeah, and just to expand a little bit on Toby's budget comments, is that, your research objectives, right? The objectives and the deliverables of your project need to be aligned with the people and the experts and the co-PIs and the support that you have. That has to be aligned with the budget, that has to be aligned with the timeline, right? So those things need to be aligned together. And reviewers notice those things.
Are home garden focused fertilizer products derived from livestock waste eligible as a bioproduct? So again, this sounds like it's going towards that consumer products definition question, and we'll refer you to the FAQ page that will be posted soon. We will give it, getting quiet, we will give it 1 more minute to see if any additional questions come in.
Yeah, I think we've got about 5 minutes left in our time, Toby.
I stand corrected. We will give it 5 more minutes. Sounds great.
Yes, well, thank you all for coming. And I'm looking forward to reading the applications in August.
Timeline for FAQ page to be posted.
Next week. Usually it takes a couple days for the communications folks.
Yeah, and for the definition. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yep, no, it just takes a couple days for communications to work their magic to get it posted.
Yeah, the one piece of the FAQ page that we're referring you to for the consumer products it is involved in a review right now that as soon as that review is done, we'll post it, but it may take a few days. So we're not sure exactly on the day of that. We had hoped by this webinar, it didn't happen. So we're very hopeful by the end of next week.
One more question, Toby. How long does it generally take for a decision on applicants after the deadline has passed?
Okay, so the deadline is August 31st, 5 p.m. Eastern time. And we're hoping to make award decisions and communicate those to the applicants by the end of December is the target. So typically the review will happen within 2 months, 6 to 8 to 10 weeks after the deadline. And our target is to get feedback to you by the end of December.
Yep. In the week after the proposals are due, you should get an administrative notice that they were accepted by NIFA for review or rejected. So, yep.
Yeah, and just to fill time while we're waiting, to go back to what was mentioned before on the grants.gov deadline, those are absolutely firm, and there can be issues with grants.gov going offline for a few hours. And so, we always tell people get it in a few days early. Please do if you can.
Yep. Also, if you're a business, you need to have a, or for that matter, any university, normally you have to have what we call the SAM number, S-A-M, or the DUNS number, which is the D-U-N-S number. So those things need to be applied for, and they can take weeks to process. So make sure you check on that while you're looking at grants.gov.
A bit tangent, but did the Smart Commodities grant submission deadline get extended or exemptions being granted due to technical issues with the site? I don't know the answer to that, unfortunately.
We'll, I'll copy that out and send that up the chain and see if we can get an answer.
Yeah, great question here. I'm sure the review panel will be diverse. Do you foresee a DEIA expert reviewer to be part of review panels?
Yes, definitely. We look at DEIA, the panel manager, the NPL, the program specialist, the division director, the institute director, and our EEO specialists all take a look at that and make sure that we have diversity across all the categories, including geography, right? To make sure that we're not concentrated in one part of the United States, make sure there's not too many people from one state, and make sure that we have those historically underrepresented groups. And NIFA is definitely committed to that. So, and to have the correct expertise to evaluate these proposals.
Yeah, if there are folks that are still on the webinar and are deciding not to apply and think that they would be a great reviewer, always feel free to send us your information, your background, a one-pager on the CV. If you wish to be considered for this, certainly for SBIR as well, we're always looking for strong reviewers.
Definitely.
Do you need SAMs and or DUNS before letter of intent? So there is no letter of intent for this call. Before submission, you absolutely will. So you'll want to get that done ahead of time.
Yeah, you need that number before grants.gov will let you in.
Can a university partner as a lead with a public company partner, or can a public company lead and then partner with the university?
The primary applicant needs to fulfill those eligibility requirements. You can partner with anybody you want, but the primary applicant where the work is going to be, the bioproducts research facility has to meet those eligibility requirements. Thank you, Ms. Barbara, for telling us that you've liked this webinar. We always appreciate it. Being scientists ourselves, we try to do our best to communicate very difficult subjects. So
maybe as we close, Nurin, is it possible just to bring up the contact information one last time so that people have it before they sign off?
Yep.
Sure. Yes, definitely.
Yes, the DUNS has been replaced with the UEI number. That is correct.
Yep.
That's being phased out. And that's why we say definitely, if you're going to apply, get to work on that right now, because we've received notices from the government agencies. I forget which agencies handle the numbers, but they're experiencing processing delays.
Toby and Vicky, do you see the?
Yep, we do. This is perfect.
Yep.
Okay. All right, thank you.
We will go ahead and close the webinar. Thanks everyone for participating. I don't know, Dr. Kephart or Finkenstadt, Nahar, if you have any other closing comments.
So one comment I would like to make, please read the RFA along with the application guide. Application guide has a lot of resources in terms of the grants.gov registration and all those information and application submission process. And during that time, if you do have any questions or comments or query, please feel free to email us.
I think we had an attendance of 175 people at the most. So all of you that are on here, I want to thank you very much. It's helpful to us as well to hear what your questions are. And I'm sure we'll get a lot of these again and again between now and August 31st. I especially want to thank Toby and Vicky and Narun. You did a great job, nice preparation, and we're really excited about this new program. So thank you all again.
With that, thanks everyone. This concludes the webinar. Thank you.